locating and extracting the water to the bottom, and we can continue on that pace with the next now being ancestral biotopes. And it's an honor to introduce to you the moderator of the panel, Herbal. Herbal has an associate professor in the university where he works at the intersection of philosophy, media, and economics. His research focuses on contemporary complementary philosophy with particular attention to post-humanism, equality, and human theories. He's the author and editor of several influences, including human theorism, interviews, and methodologies, and he has collaborated widely with artists and cultural institutions. You'll find his works as well as our thinking, making, and living on candles and how philosophies can engage the urgent, social, and ecological practice. He's actively involved in interdisciplinary research and public programs connecting theory and artistic practice. It's not planning to go on ritual times and stage. At the stage, he will introduce the Ancestral Biotopes panel and speak with them now. Please welcome Ecological.
We have a very interesting panel here on ancestral biotopes. So we'll have to do serious traveling around the globe, and we will look at different environments from a more immediate perspective, and try to understand a bit of how different traditions in knowledge, how different ideas about humans, about life, how they are intelligent, and how we can learn from that. In the Western world, of course, we have our own tradition of taking nature into hypothesis, of cultivation, man and animal, and competition, man and nature, culture and nature, which think of negative oppositions. Although we also have enough thinkers and practitioners and artists to show us that the world actually was different. But especially nowadays, in times of ecological crises, it is the greatest importance, of course, to learn more about how different traditions in knowledge look at these issues, and especially on the part of technology, which is so strongly dominating our insights and websites about these features. So I'm very happy that this panel we can actually think about these more human environments, think about ancestral biotopes. We have 3 guests that will help us here. I will introduce the guests very briefly, and then we'll have a talk. And we will get free time. Afterwards, we have a full discussion here. So it's me together with the 3 speakers, and then we will open up to the audience. So we'll have that. So our first speaker will be online. I hope that the black screen on. It's she's also a laboring program scientist. She's a French new media artist, French release name which is sent. A very nice title that I like very much. Health tech political therapist. With new combining health technology and philosophy, of course, as we think we also extraction. She's also a connected Kundalini yoga teacher. She presented her work in quite a few galleries around the world. Goodman Gallery in Johannesburg, Art Gallery in London, Athens Biennial, next year World Art Fair in Sydney. And her book from 2022 is called Cosmological. Warm welcome to Discovery Paris.
Hi everybody, thank you for having me here. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. So I'll talk to you about today Amakaba, which is a project that I started in 2020. It's in between a sacred forest, a pedagogical farm, and a space of experiment, of social cultural experimentation, let me say. So I'll guide you through what we do to explain our cosmovision and how we relate to the forest. So also I don't have a clicker, so I'll do a little like this for next slide. It might be disturbing, yes. So Amakaba is based in French Guyana, where I live. So many people do not know where that is. So it's a small piece of land in between Brazil and Suriname in South America. And it's also the only place yet not to be independent in the South American continent. So we're still a part of France. And hopefully that will change soon. So it really exists within a colonial framework, and the access to land is quite complicated. 90% of the land belongs to France. So, I mean, a lot of things are, let me say, complex because of that situation. But Amakaba exists within this context and try to respond to it in a way to create a space for remembrance, for connection, for resistance, for defiance. And a space that is anchored in traditional cosmogonies and in a way of relating to the forest beyond extractivism, beyond that is more in relational, let me say, or in reciprocal. So at the heart of Amakaba is three dimensions that we operate within. It's earth, body, sky. And we try to do this through art, you know, to really share the wisdom of the earth, the body, and the sky through art, science, and spirituality. And most of our gesture and action is really about care, transmission, and celebration. So I'll walk you through a little bit of what we do in each of those areas. In the earth area, like we have on the farm, there's a cacao farm, there's different pedagogical gardens, one for womb health, one for natural dyes, and we have also a traditional fruit area, and everything is very participative. And we try to involve different communities, different people from French Guyana, different, you know, everybody's welcome basically, whether you know how to farm or not. The point is really to open up, to repair that relationship with the land, with the forest. And we're on a little mountain in front of the sea. It's very beautiful. And so we have an ancestral cacao farm. So we're kind of the custodian of that farm, of that plantation. It's about 100 to 200 years old. So on the mountain that we are, the Mayuri mountain, it was previously indigenous territory. And then when the European came, they converted that mountain into a slavery agriculture area, you know, so there was a lot of coffee, cacao, indigo, ruku, sugar. And so now the plantation that we occupy, that we take care of, could it potentially a remnant of those cacao, or maybe it has been planted a little later by some descendants, you know, of enslaved, freed enslaved people. So it's very meaningful to us, you know, to add another layer to that history, to try and repair the relationship of the land, and to try and also nurture the spirits of that forest, you know, and the ancestors that have died there, that have been exploited on this land, that have related to those plants unwillingly, potentially. And now for us to go and to harvest those cacao with an intention of healing very much. So that's the farming students. We collaborate with the farming school, you know, sometimes with other institution, like women victims of gender-based violence can come, or like indigenous youth who are removed from their villages forcefully, because in French, you have to go to school. So some people from the village, they are brought to the cities, Well, that's another story, but like completely like separated from their communities, from their tradition, and then sent back at 18. They don't speak their language, they don't know their rituals or their culture. So it's a huge issue. But anyway, so sometimes bringing those youth on the land so that they can, be in the forest. So that's little example of, like our gardens, little pictures, and all the gardens in space are also ritual space. So for instance, like a womb garden, womb medicinal plants, we use it for like pregnancies, first menstruation, as a place to share knowledge, but also to do some rituals and to honor passage, and transitions of life. And our dye garden, we use it also for like transformation on the cacao farm before each harvest, plantation, transformation. We do offering to the spirit of the land. We have 2 garden trees, a big kapok tree and a big ficus, which we call grandmother. Kapok is grandfather, and they're the guardian of the land. And yeah, they take care of us and we take care of them in return. So that's pictures of our medicinal plant garden. And we also have a little forest school that we run for 2 years, like with kids who go to our home school. So they came to the land. So that's dye garden picture. And they come to the land and do dyeing, farming, planting, harvesting cacao. And it's very important for us to involve the youth, and allow them to learn from the forest and to have the forest really as a teacher, to have a kind of education that is rooted in the country's traditions. So that earth-wise, let me say in very brief. And body-wise, I guess our main focus is womb wisdom and like movement medicine and cooking. So we do yoga classes, capoeira. We invite very regularly traditional groups of like drumming, dancing, because French Guiana, you have indigenous population, Maroon population, and what's called Creole population. And then a lot of different migrations of population have come later, but so that's the main populations. And so we try to invite different communities, to do, traditional drum for the cacao, for the forest. So, because cacaos, they love drum. And then a big advocacy we have is the relationship to motherhood, to advocate for the right to birth at home, which is not very easy in France, and also we collaborate with traditional midwives to share, to allow them to share their knowledge about the rituals, the plants, for conception, pregnancy, postpartum, because they are not allowed to exercise in France, so they have been made illegal. So we really try to retrieve, and now they're elders, they haven't practiced and they're not passing down their knowledge because a lot of the youth is not that interested, so we really try to advocate for that and to organize. We also train a new generation of birth worker with Afro-Amazonian understanding of birth. And so that's very important for us. Yeah. And food-wise as well. So we do a lot of communal meal, communal cooking, plant-based eating to, promote the wealth of the forest, that the forest allows us to eat, to build. We do a lot of also communal building with wood, with palm leaves. Like we can heal, we have medicine from the forest. You dye your clothes, you make clothes with cotton. I mean, it's so, generous. So we really try to bring that on. And skywise, so it goes in between cosmogony and astronomy. and celebration of the cycle. So we try to be really in sync as much as possible with the cycle of the sky. So honoring like the moon cycle, especially concerning planting, harvesting, like weeding, trying to be aligned with the moon. And the sun, we celebrate every solstice, every equinox, and we do big community celebration with like big shared meals, like rituals to bring community together, but to have a moment for the spirit of the forest where we do libation, where we do offerings, where we gather, and we also process whatever is going on within our community and within the people that come and support us. And we've done this project, for instance, called Carbe Planetarium. We would invite an elder on the land to talk about like the big kapok, which is the big sacred tree in French Guiana. So they would share stories. So it's nights of storytelling. And we have also telescope, for people to go and look at different alignments of planets. And we had also travel in different villages of French Guiana to do those evenings, with the elders, and to really, I don't know how I can say, but honor the stories, the sacred stories of our land and the different ways of connecting to the sky. Because you may not know, but French Guiana is the home of the European Space Center. So a lot of like European rockets and satellites leaves from French Guiana, even like NASA is now using like our launch pad. So what does it mean to be at the center of global spatial politics, but same time, we also have our own ways of traveling through the cosmos, maybe through sacred trees, through spirits of the water, spirit of the forest, through different shamanic practices or different ways, and that's what we really try to honor and to invoke and to share and transmit, because our relationship to the land, to the forest, is not only like farming, but it's related to the stories of the cosmos, it's related to the stories of the womb, because we're all one interdependent entities, we are influenced by the movement of the skies, we are dependent on the movement of the water, of what's happening beneath the earth, of our ancestors that are still here with us, and we need to include them. So I guess Amakaba is really about the sacredness of the forest in all its dimension and all the communities that it holds, visible and invisible. So that's all for a very short presentation. And that's our kapok tree. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the beautiful presentation. Short question afterwards. Of course, this is also education, and I think at the university, I know that 90% of the universities around the globe, they have the same curriculum in many ways. So I'm happy to hear that there are some initiatives that show that there are these kinds of laws which are so difficult to bring to universities. So I'd love to hear more in those members briefly on the schooling part. And I mean, we talked about it already, but also is it difficult to set up something like that? So we really listen to what you have to say and what other people come up with.
I mean, it's difficult because we operate within French law, so us is not an official school. It's just like we receive like people, I guess, who are already outside of the school system, which is people who have chosen to homeschool their kids, so there's more flexibility there. So that's why we were allowed to, able to organize that little school for 2 years, with parents who I guess were already in process, of wanting a different kind of education for their children. But then we have a lot of schools that ask, to come and visit the farm, to come and do activities. So there is that willingness. I mean, French Guiana is 95% forest. Only 5% of the country is inhabited, So the forest is everywhere, but yet, people are very separated from it, and we are kind of close to urban areas, so it makes it easy. So, but I guess it's one-off, they want to do an outing, so it's not yet really integrated. And I guess hopefully one day we can be a proper school, to really have like the forest be the teacher, because that's how it used to be and how it can still be, with a bit of courage and determination. For sure. And also, I think it's important that is intergenerational, you know, like, because that's how you learn. You learn from different generations, you know, from people who have been on the earth before you. You know, you learn from your ancestors, you learn from the spirit, you learn from the young ones as well. You know, in our little school, we were from 3 years old to 17, you know, and then there's, you know, volunteers until 70 years old, you know, who come and help with. I think that's also what we have lost, you know, from like a village or community centered way of transmission, you know, to like a formal education. And I think it's very important to bring that back and to bring the elders back at the center of transmission. Yes, sure.
Voy a empezar haciendo una descripción del concepto biológico del biotopo. Pero voy a apoyarme en aquello que pensé que nos encontró esta semana en otra conversación, la ancestral. Está viva, es presente y el futuro ya fue. Mi biotopo que voy a presentar hoy es un biotopo global. He pensado estos biotopos gracias a personas. Los tres biotopos, que son uno, tienen en común el hecho de tener suelos pobres, de ser resistentes a la calor y al sol que pegan. Y de agregar tres plantas que son al mismo tiempo alimento, diálogo comprensible y sustento de la persona, que permiten que las personas sean personas. en el sustento de las personas. Luego, exacto. Y también las redes son utilizadas para de alguna manera facilitar la comunicación y de alguna manera entablar. La primera de ellas es el agave. El agave es una planta la cual se hace culto, fue llamada la de las maravillas porque permite construir, embriagarse y vivir. Construir cosas para la y en el 2023 estuvimos en trabajando con el Grupo Tánico de la UNAM, una de las conductoras de México, que es una de los especialistas de la agave en el mundo. Convocamos a un grupo de 20 personas de diferentes disciplinas para trabajar alrededor de la agave desde el punto de vista científico, pero también con una serie de campesinos que están tratando de cuidar la agave porque en este momento hay un problema muy serio de pérdida de la biodiversidad de los agaves. La principal razón de esta pérdida de biodiversidad es que el mundo global le encanta la necesidad de tequila. Pero la agave, más allá de esa parte global de una historia más ambiente, y esta es otra de las razones por las cuales estos tres biotopos son biotopos globales. La tierra hace parte de esos biotopos. So, beyond discussion for the fire tequila, agave was a very vital issue. This is why the three biotopes are really vital, because war is part of it. A mitad del siglo XIX, a principios del siglo XX, se desarrollaron en Yucatán, en México y en una parte de Guatemala, lo que se llamó la guerra de las cartas, que fue una guerra entre los mayas y los colonos por la tierra. Básicamente, formación de grandes haciendas para cultivar una variedad de agave. So between the 19th century and the 20th century, there was in southern Mexico, also Guatemala, there was a war between the Mayas and the colonos, the Spaniards, for the land. Because the land was organized in really big haciendas, big farmlands, controlled by the colonos. And this farmlands will cultivate cane for the variety of agave used for pero ese agave estaba en esa actividad era necesario para el norte global, para la revolución industrial y para la Primera Guerra Mundial. This fiber was necessary for the north, for the industrial revolution and the financial. Entonces hicimos una pieza recuperando esta idea de los sabores de los tejidos, como la agave que se están perdiendo en México también, y haciendo una llamada para retomar la defensa de la biodiversidad de los materiales y provocando también a los museos. So if we need to draw attention to this knowledge about reading the discoveries that we see now, also to pay attention to other aspects of the this relation, including, for instance, facts that are very important for the communication of the data. Bueno, hay algunas imágenes de instalación, un tejido grande con una gran variedad de plantas medicinales locales mexicanas. La segunda planta que convoca este efecto global es la coca. Las factors para identificar el impacto de Herbal biota es la coca. Evidentemente es una planta que nutre, evidentemente es una planta que facilita la comunicación y que introduce la palabra. Y que están en una guerra global desde hace muchísimo tiempo, que se ha llamado la guerra contra las drogas. Y aprovecho para contar que hoy en Colombia están luchando activamente por sacarla de la lista donde se encuentra, al lado de moléculas como la heroína también. And I take a chance to mention that earlier in Colombia I tried to remove the status coca from the list of drugs hace 15 días se depositó ante el Ministerio de Justicia. 15 days ago, the petition was accepted by the minister. En el 2007 tengo una tradición de pero tengo una historia que se tiene con los cultivos de la planta de la coca, gracias a las guerras de los campesinos y de los comerciantes de las zonas cocaleras que producían coca para la cocaína. So around this time, I have a history with coca from indigenous communities and communities from the islands, and the story is related to the history of patterns that were involved in cultivation of coca for porque mi papá era portavoz de la lucha contra las migraciones aéreas del hipocampo en los años 90. Because my father was a speaker for the movement against the spread and not the spread of glyphosate and against the cultivation of coca. Esta es una pieza que es sobre un tapete de hojas de banana, que es otra planta que comparte con los cielos, con la coca, la contaminación americana. Also, this is a piece that starts with the banana leaves, and the banana plant is part of the history of intoxication by y la tercera planta es la coca, que estamos, el work in progress que estamos produciendo en esta cuestión. The third plant is the yucca, que es la historia está contada en background, necesito que no tenga mucho tiempo para hablar, pero es una planta que también uno de los usos que en la región donde yo hice la residencia se está perdiendo más es la fabricación de la chicha, que es la bebida ritual que permitía los bailes y las festividades. Y los pueblos de la yuca transforman el veneno en alimento, En este región encontramos coltanas, tenemos escenas de blanco con la sociedad que tenemos que hacer entre la mamá casada, la ancestra que están en África, porque este viaje de la yuca empezó hace 500 años. And communities perform important food because there is a lot of high quality I also want to talk about coltan, especially purple, and one of the best parts of the world. Y la situación de entonces un poco muy corto, me quedan muy cortos, pero lo que quiero decir con esta denominar arbitrariamente estos biotopos como biotopos cultivables es un intento de pedir justicia global por los biotopos originales de estas plantas. So, this is arbitrary decision of community developers as well as developers is also a way of justice for the porque efectivamente entendemos lo visible, los seres humanos que hay adentro, las bacterias, el fuego, el aire. Y para las otras cosas que nos están difíciles, para ver bacterias y muchas otras cosas.
One short question. Thank you very much for the resource. Very often our intellectual knowledge knowledge that long tradition that did not receive help and for about 200 years it was not being and we died about it. I think it's very important for this talk to actually prepare the need to get a siege of the climate, sustainability, and regeneration, bringing ecological threats to life through rainfall, practices, and explorations. By shaping collaborations with participants and crafting artistic interventions, the key word is connections to make a healthier, more balanced ecosystems. Thank you.
When I was invited to give a presentation today, I thought maybe taking you on a small journey that I had as an art researcher in coming into contact with what I consider one of our very great ancestors, and how I got to know it, learn from it, and work with it. There's this research that says in the last 200 years, 60% of us have lost our connection to the natural world. This is called the extinction of experience. And I distinctly had this experience when it was COVID time, when everything was about being free from our work to also hanging out with friends and our time off. It was just super overwhelming. So I created a short film called Megan and Me. And it was just a very simple film that was without any prompts, just following a young child through the natural realm and see it just kind of talk to trees and plants in a very childlike, very free way. And it reminded me that we are all born with this wonder, this natural connection to explore the world around us. And I want to have that in myself, so I made an installation called the Reflection Clause. And in the Reflection Clause, you kind of have to kneel down to enter, and when you're inside, all you have is the ground below you and the sky above. And it also was in the shape of in the process of the Vitruvian magic sense, the domination, and instead kind of embrace the Vitruvian woman's perspective or exploring that as being a vessel of receiving and giving those who are exploring her. During this time, I also started a foundation called LGBTQ after that, and part of what we did was run this public art program here in Utrecht, and we explored themes of ecology, sustainability, and community-based practices within and here we just gave room for experimentation to work together in this somewhat abandoned space in Utrecht that was very central, to bring life to it, to bring people from the surrounding areas, like thousands of people passing this area every day, they don't even notice it. So we explored having a food garden there, films and festivals, and one of the festivals that we hosted was called Interdependent. And it explored the themes of your physical health and well-being, your mental health and well-being, and the physical health and well-being of our planet. And how it's so interconnected all together. It was also during this time that I started a project with a friend of mine that originated in India called the Waste Bar. We decided to bring the Waste Bar from the beaches here to the Netherlands. And the core goal of the Waste Bar was to raise awareness in a very fun and playful way to the general public about how we treat this planet as kind of like a large garbage bin. We just toss things in, we don't think about it, and then take your cigarette butts, which is not even considered waste, or litter. And at the Waste Bar, you could pay with street litter, and of course, you'll get the most way that you pay with cigarette butts, or a drink, or a culture, which is these special candies, or other coffee snacks. And we set this goal to collect half a million cigarettes across the Netherlands to the beaches and the cities. And this momentum over 2 years really built. We started working together with team initiatives, we were at festivals, events, plants, and cloning is going to be very interesting. And we actually reached this goal of collecting half-million cigarettes with all this participation. And it's actually during this time that I then came to contact with this because I was given the challenge to work with the half-million cigarettes. So I spent a little bit of time in the lab, trying experiments, and that's when I came to contact with my team. And my team, for those of you who are not yet acquainted with it, or still getting acquainted with it, is this living organism that has been around between 700 and 800 million years old. It lives in the ecosystem, and long before us, it was breaking open the rocks when the atmosphere was super toxic, and making a symbiotic relationship with algae, and bringing the algae from the aquatic world onto land. And then together in their symbiotic relationship, they turned the toxic air into the oxygen that we now breathe. And my journey with my team was just, my mind was blown with how I learned from it. One of the first things I did was be able to bring together the half-million cigarettes into about 2 years and 8 months. Really learning to listen to it because you cannot take it away from finding a way to grow the cultivated, the half-million cigarettes. We visited this at the City Hall Theater because we wanted to be really in the public space where the general public could see it in the 3D celebration of when we work together. Human communities also with powerful transformation and have sometimes complex problems but with solutions. So my journey was, like I said, team didn't end here. It was also during this time that I realized that I was sitting in my field direction. And I was forgetting that I was like a biological being, treating my body like a machine, and ended up having burnout. So it was then that I was also able to kind of concentrate on this another role that I see in environment ecosystem. And bioscience, one of the amazing composts. It takes the dead environment in our ecosystem and it transforms it into this rich humus that next generation can live from life. So I spent 2 years researching the question of what must die and what should we let go both personally, collectively, in institutions, and in society. And this is sometimes a really uncomfortable question that people don't like to sit with because it's things that we have ingrained in us that we want to let go of, and it's always uncomfortable. But it brought a new perspective into what I do and how I do what it's done. And also to think that our role now and how that will impact the next generation. So by being willing to let go of things and transform our current habits that are not really beneficial for the planet, we can create a different world. And I was at the same time also inspired to co-curate from the global perspective this exhibition for the UN in New York when they were signing declarations for future generations. The idea was to represent, actually ask the question of what kind of ancestors are we going to have in the next generation. And it was inspired by the indigenous tribes in the state when America, where when they have a pasture sitting together, they have to take into account 7 generations ahead of time. You always have to stop and think, this choice that we make now, how is it going to impact the generation ahead? And I added an extra piece in there where people were invited to write a postcard to future generations and think about what they would like to leave behind. And this is a collective and purposeful memory of my life in the whole life. I was also invited to be a part of Asian Science Network This is a really fun because we're so happy to actually do body tests on the ground. In fact, the first few days that I was there, they were like, to rest to have to be able to take yourself out of your normal routine and really be a part of the environment and listen to the environment. And for this one, I grew 400 pieces of my seeds while living in the 12 generational soils because one thing that my seedling does when it wants to reproduce, one of the ways is that it mushrooms and then creates these microcycles, spores that float into the environment. Actually, every time you breathe in, you have these spores. And I invited the public to come and take one of these pieces of my seedling as a representation before it's placed into the ground because what they are testing on the ground for that. This leads me to my final piece, which is my latest work, and it's also here at the festival, and it's called Cultivated. It's focusing mainly on the interconnection that we're seeing happen with the ground, with the ecosystem, passing nutrients and messages between trees and plants, creating this mutually beneficial relationship with the ground. And how we too as society actually have that. We have lots of acts of kindness and care between humans and non-humans that go unnoticed every single day. And so the piece invites people to kind of become kindness forwarders, recall acts of kindness and document them and make this sort of invisible network become visible. And it's also done in the hexacycle or the witch's circle or the fairy ring phenomenon that happens that it's caught the attention of many indigenous tribes and folk skills across the globe when mushrooms come around this perfect circle of nature. And there's always tales of magic and mystery around this phenomenon. And I thought that maybe it would be really beautiful if we create together some magic and mystery of kindness for the next generation. Leave it together.
Actually, we were all talking about planting future generations, so it's very nice that you kind of start with that already. Kind of how do we see 7 generations ahead? And I would like to start with you, but then we can also kind of go up and start a bit maybe make something like here, which is the software and everything. How life actually is, and what kind of memory is in that. So I'm very curious, and maybe you can answer that first, and then we can sort of talk about what forms of plant thinking, about chemistry, thinking of our world, but if you, what will we be surprised about when it comes to plant thinking? How our plants, because we are still very human and we feel like we take care of the planet, we can restore things, and at the same time, plants have a very different agenda, and they do their own thing, and they will surprise us more and more. And very curious on your findings of it.
We don't really have to worry, I think, too much about getting survival. It's more about our own sitting on our own kinds of learning to do it. One thing that I've come to realize is that there's so much we can learn from them. Because there's so many different kinds of perspectives that are very human that we like to feel like a case upon them. But if we we take the time to slow down and more observe and follow their rhythm and their pattern and the way they operate in ecosystems. First, we're going to observe and then following through small actions, ways that we can start to dilute the stopping, transform the plant by
and it's been going on.
That's clear. And I think it's also about really slowing down. I think that's one of the arguments is just slowing down. Also, being willing to take the small, everyday, consistent steps to change our patterns because we're still so ingrained in being human and putting a part of our brain that if we take that time to take the perspective
and I would helping the dual work, the kind of work that we do. How is that going to help?
I think my work is always participatory and I try to make it in a way that the knowledge that I learn from the scientific world and the biofield is not bound down, like it's translated into a natural audience, but made in a way that is accessible, playful, and sparks curiosity for more desire to understand. So I think I can play that way in terms of my life. It's not important to
Maybe you can now, I'm very happy to just do it, and we can deploy these three, but and maybe say something about the way cacao plant and other grandmothers and fathers to have anger activities and such how they teach us and unexpected type of action we can expect from them.
I guess it's on different levels, you know. I mean, one would be very spiritual because here we believe that plants and certain trees are the abode of spirit, that spirit lives in the trees, you know, and then they can become intermediary, you know, with the world, other dimensions, like through the actual spirit that is in the tree can communicate with some people, you know, and I guess those people have a certain role in the community, maybe a shaman, like priest, or people who channel ancestors and spirit and then can share message to the rest of the community. So I guess in that way they are direct teachers from the spiritual entities that inhabit those trees, you know, and so that's something that's very important here culturally in different traditions with the indigenous or Afro-descendant as well. So I'd say that's the main way to learn from the trees, but spiritually. And I guess in a different way, it's more like the forest, I'd say, is really much a mirror somehow. It shows you where you're not in sync, like with the rhythm of the forest, with a more cosmic rhythm. And it, like, I don't know, I can say a little example, you know, of when we were working on, maybe 5 years ago, a nursery of cacao trees, you know, and I realized I was supposed to water them daily, and maybe for months I watered them daily, and then one day it was dry season, I did not. Then the next day I did not, and then I need to go water the plant, and I did not, and the more I felt, oh my God, I need to water the plant, the more I wouldn't, you know. And then it took me 1 week to go, and then I realized they all died, and I was so devastated. You know, it was 400 cacao babies, you know. But then it taught me something so incredibly powerful. It's like I realized like what was preventing me. It was a sense of shame. I was like, oh, I didn't. Then I felt shameful that I did not for 1 day, and then 2 days, and then to see how shame paralyzes. While it's completely counterintuitive, you say like when you feel you're not doing something you should do, then you just should do it more, but basically you do it less. And I guess seeing that little experience, I mean, I think, yeah, it taught me a great lesson, you know, and seeing it in myself, you know, I'm able now to see it also in the world, where in a world that's full of shame and so paralyzed and not managing collectively to do what needs to be done. And I guess in our relationship to ecology, two different entangled struggles for justice and liberation, we are really not doing our part, you know, and I think shame has a big role in that. And I think the cacao, those babies that passed somehow or sacrificed, they taught me that. And that's just one example, but I guess in the way we relate, we are shown something about ourselves, you know, like when we lack patience or when we, I don't know, they have that capacity if we can listen, you know.
Bringing it back to you, of course, the coca is a very good example of how we have a very specific idea of it. It's a very negative idea in legislation. So I'm sure that there's a lot to learn from the coca plants, which we, especially the Westerners, have no clue about, because I think that we're so stigmatized.
La cuestión de la estigmatización es como de criminalismo, ¿no? De separar la producción industrial y el monocultivo de coca para el cacao. Para el ciclo de cacao, necesariamente siento que mi trabajo, o siento no, mi trabajo es conciliación a un trabajo sobre la hoja de coca que responde a un pedido de las comunidades originarias para que la coca viaje, porque dicen que la coca es una planta del viento, es una planta de la comunicación, es una planta que debe viajar. So my work is really in response to a demand for the indigenous community that want the people to travel. The coca is a plant of the wind, is a plant of the travel, and it's a plant of health communication. Para comunicar y para trabajar. Entonces, la idea es que el pedido de los pueblos de la coca es que ahora puede viajar, pero hay que primero tumbar esa ley de que la planta pueda traditionally been. And at first, it has to change its legal status globally so that it can cover all. Quisiera volver un poco más a la trilogía, a estas tres plantas y cómo la relación con esa especie, con esta planta, pasa claramente por el cultivo, pero sobre todo por todos los gestos, las tecnologías y la transformación química para poder consumirla. So I'd like to go back to the trinity of plants and to say that the plants physical relation with the plants it happens through cultivation, but also through techniques and reactions, right? Chemical reactions that need to happen in order to be able to work with the plants. Y creo que tiene esa relación de hacer todo para que yo pueda incorporar, es decir, hacer entrar en el cuerpo, cerca de la planta, a través de este consumo. This process of transforming the plant into my body and I can become plant, they do somehow inside of the connection to the plant. Es una transmutación mucho menos fantástica del pan del vino en la sangre del cuerpo de Cristo, pero es una manera de incorporar los espíritus también. It's another kind of transformation that's fantastic and very warm one year product. Pantalla de llamada voy a incorporar este espíritu.
Yeah, this is also a kind of separation that was somehow institutionalized, especially for modernity, and things of religion is something else, and biochemistry is something else. Then our way of thinking, it's a structure of thought that in other traditions of knowledge is completely different. So starting from a kind of relational perspective allows us also to mix them together. We show that what we call thinking, you can also call it biochemical reactions or something, or some kind of exchange. It doesn't matter too much what kind of work we make usually, because it's just trying to show all these connections and to try to show that in the other traditions of thought, there's a much more richer way of seeing how far reaching these connections are. I don't know if we have time for this, but I would like to have a few questions from the audience. For the last one, is there one? Yes? Yes. Okay, so, audience, do you have any questions for this? It's a very interesting topic that we addressed here. Probably have to look like this. Quite right. Any questions concerning the... Yes? Please stand up and say who you are. From the view, I'm going to have congratulations to all of you for these topics. I would like to talk a little bit more about these workers of copper, and you showed it in the how was it, how this relation was happening, and what's the purchase. I remember when I was in Catholic in Medellin, we were with this student workshop, and they said, Pablo Escobar no murió, Pablo Escobar está vivo, viva Pablo Escobar. Yo no me quiero ir a la escuela, porque no está muerto, pero sigue pero a ver, en 1994 estalló una huelga importante en la región hotelera de las zonas colombianas de Guayana. So in 1994, a huge strike took place in the largest cocaine so the largest producer of coca in Colombia. So Guayana. Es una región, es una situación muy compleja porque no es el caso de Bolivia, donde los cocoleros y los cocaleros están organizados, hay una base política indígena, aquí eran colonos pobres desplazados por la violencia, pidiendo que nos ayuden, asesinándoles con el So there's different contexts of the situation in Bolivia, where producers of coca are indigenous, very organized, and there's a political basis for this organization as well. So in the case of Colombia, there were poor colonies that were displaced from the processes because of the war. Hay como varias capas de represiones en ese proceso. And then there were protesters, and strikers because they protested because they were being killed in the movement con el glifosato. And they were killed because of the classical framework. The classical is being used to ellos lo vimos un poco en la película que presenta Felipe, ¿no? Colombia ha sufrido más de 46 años de migraciones aéreas, incluso en este gobierno, ahora más en Europa, constantes de random para Europa es el nombre comercial de glifosato. Es un ecocidio dramático asociado a la planta de la coca que no muere porque es resistente. So, actually, in the movie Western Repair, so Colombia has been a victim of a story of glyphosate for 46 years.
and it's even in the government on its own ground, and it's also constantly renewed between around the product, and it's a complete opposite. So it's difficult to say.
Any more questions? Are you worried about time? Maybe you can't one, yes? There's a thing coming your way, I don't know what it is.
For you, I've got a question because you might have a question. What kind of machine were you using?
It wasn't a very straightforward message, really, is not just for chance to do, because each one has a different sort of makeup and react differently. You have to kind of do a ton of experiments to see which one is the best match to what I wanted to do. So, yeah.
And did they really perform like the secret books into like?
The process itself was more about being able to bring it together and show that my student can have the capacity to break down toxins, which it does. But there's certain types that work better for completely biodegrading systems, complexes to cigarette butt because it's got cellular acetate in there, it's got thousands and thousands of chemicals. So that part of itself I wasn't able to make it completely biodegradable cigarettes. But it was able to show that there's a possibility that we can do this because there are other strains that can successfully completely biodegrade the cigarettes.
One more. I'm looking at people who are just talking in the end, but one more is okay? Okay.
Thank you very much all for your work. I'm also quite specifically interested in one plant because I work with indigo, and I think you mentioned you have on the land there was a practice and there was an indigo practice, but yet under unsafe circumstances. So I wonder, do you actually work with indigo, but also maybe if you're not also far away, you all pick organism to work with. So there's so many layers you can peel off, like historically and spiritually. But I'm really interested in how do you really connect to the spirit of the plant and knowledge and background histories help and frameworks of indigenous thought with your work. And how do you adapt these rituals use this in your own practice.
Okay. Yeah, we do use indigo. So on our mountain, indigo used to be cultivated. And so we have a little small garden of natural dye where we have mainly juniper, indigo, ruku, turmeric, and like bisap, the ozai plant. I don't know how it's called in English, to have different colors. And so for now, we just harvest it, and then you do indigo workshops because we do a lot of natural dye workshop, but we still not have extracted indigo from our leaf, do the fermentation process because our shrubs are still a bit young, But I guess that's, we're waiting for the first indigo harvest, and so far we do, our work with indigo, with other type of indigo. I go often to Nigeria as well, and I have worked with a lot of indigo elders there to learn adire practice, and with the indigo bowls. I don't know if you're familiar with that form of indigo, and so we've done that here as well. So I guess it's always interesting for us because we're in the Amazonian forest. but there is mainly Afro-descendant population and indigenous to make a link with the African continent, the Americas, and the Caribbean, and see how the lineage of plants and practice have traveled, in a Afro-Amazonian context, because a lot of the practices and rituals and spirituality emerge from Africa, but in an Amazonian context, I mean, I guess it depends from which population you are, but me, my lineage is Creole, it's quite blended, indigenous and Afro-descendant. So trying to honor those lineage, and also politically, because there's a lot of trauma still, and a kind of conflict between communities, to try and have a space that include different lineage and also a political relationship to the plant, to try and honor the spiritual lineages, and practices of a plant, and to face the historical context, of slavery, what it did to our relationship to the land and to specific plant, and somehow, in Amakaba, a lot of the plants that we work with are the heritage, of like the colonial era, like cacao, indigo, cotton, and somehow those are the plants that called me, So I guess it's also the ancestors in me who still live through some, through that project, and want to maybe relate differently to those plants, and bring different dimensions. So that's what I can say.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have to close now. So I would like to thank the speakers, Peter and Herbal, so thank you very much for attending this talk. That's very important. We have to attend more interesting ancestral biotopes creating the artist talk and a keynote